You have to really release that governor on your mind so that you can believe you are worthy of experiencing the success and being able to hold that space, whatever it means to you, whatever vulnerability, whatever responsibility it means. You have to be ready. And very few in the world are.
Everything you desire already exists as potential. Your mindset is the key code that brings it into reality. Hello and welcome to the Move the Chains podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Munsey. I'm really glad that you're here with us today. We've got a great conversation with Howard Falco. Howard is the author of 3 tremendous books, I Am, Time in a Bottle, and his latest book is Invincible. And Howard's not just an author. He's a renowned mental strength coach. He works with college and pro athletes in a variety of sports. He's a spiritual teacher, self-empowerment. He's the creator of Invincible, a step-by-step playbook for developing an unbreakable mindset. And you know we love talking about that here. So today's episode, we're going to reveal how anyone, that means you, can unlock infinite possibility as Howard teaches his athletes, executives, and high achievers to make their best outcomes inevitable. So coming up, we're going to dig into Howard's signature method for overcoming fear and uncertainty. We'll talk about how to shift your perception for breakthroughs and peak results. We'll talk about the process for activating invincible mental strength, even in adversity, and so much more. Howard, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Ryan. Excited for the convo.
Same here, man. So I guess we'll start a little bit with some of your background. You had a, let's say, profound awakening that changed the course of your life. What was your journey from, let's say, finance to writing transformational books like this and working with the high level athletes that you do and even regular people and helping them unlock the possibilities and then step into that?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you sort of the short version of it, and you can ask me to expand on any of it. But it started as a young kid around the age of 14, just being a seeker and just wondering the first time that I ever was away from the Chicago city lights on a camping trip, and at night I looked up. That moment changed my life forever because I couldn't believe what I was staring at in the night sky. I couldn't believe the amount of stars that filled the sky. It literally and physically and spiritually blew my mind. And it set me off on this journey of wonder and questioning about the nature of who we are, what we're doing here, what our purpose is, some of the deeper existential questions one can ask. And these questions sort of drove me in my life as I went through a regular life. Parents got divorced in my teens. I left home from Chicago, went out west to go to school out at Arizona State, got a degree in finance, graduated, got into the finance business, fell in love, got married, 2 kids, bought a house. I was trying to achieve the American dream, but at the same time, these questions needed answers. And so I kept thinking I was getting closer to the answer the more I put together the picture of what one thought brought happiness with all these check boxes. And what was happening was the opposite. I was getting more stressed. I wasn't getting to that place of peace. Not that I did love my wife and was happy with my family, but the deeper questions that I had about what the purpose of all this is was not being answered. And that concerned me. And it created a sort of an existential crisis in my mid-30s where I couldn't take it anymore because I had realized I'm working with people that have money for lifetimes and they weren't happy. And so the last thing on my checklist was, well, millions of dollars will make you happy. And that I realized wasn't going to be it. And when I realized that wasn't going to be it, I freaked out and I'm like, hey, universe, God, life, I'm ready to understand more. That asking, and it was a deep yearning. It wasn't just a passive asking. It was like on my knees, please show me the way, began a process where, a million synchronicities started to happen to unfold those answers towards me, to bring those answers into my awareness. And the more I realized that was what was happening, that life in my daily walk was starting to show me the answers through conversations with people, a seminar that I went to, little bits and pieces. I started to get much more present to life and realize, wow, if I'm paying attention, I can basically open to the insight, life will bring it to me when I'm in a receiving mode. And that created this sort of open portal, if you will, that in December of 2002 was as if time collapsed and information was just pouring in before I even asked questions. And it created this profound experience where I had this expansion of awareness where what I knew about life in 1 second just dramatically changed. It's like if you have an epiphany on something and you multiply that by 1,000,000,000. I had an epiphany on a lot of things. Not everything. I'll never say I know everything, and I'm always asking new questions, but it was enough to change my life and have me go out and write I Am, my first book, to share what I had learned. I said I knew in that moment that I was going to leave the finance business. That was over. And my mission was going to be just to serve this awareness and share it with people that were looking for the same insight. And then ironically, with the intent to sort of take it out of esoteric spiritual nature, but bring it more to mainstream, athletes started to call and say, hey, I read your book, I Am. Here's what happened to my performance. I was already coaching so many people in different areas. I'd grown up playing every sport. It was an easy transition for me to work with athletes, and it took off, and we had a ton of success. And so that was the journey. And then I wrote my second book, Time in a Bottle. And then ultimately I took all the experiences from sports and life and put it in Invincible and the formula. So that's sorry about that. That's the short story, Ryan.
No, it's great. It's great. There's a lot of different things in there that we can jump off of. And I think one that I'm curious to hear about is, I think so many times somebody listening to a podcast will hear a story like that. And, there's in the beginning, there was this, and, now we're here. What were some of the things, like you talked about how your awareness changed? And so I think there's a part of this question that is, how does the mindset shift open doors to awareness? But also, what quite literally, what were some of the things that you sought out or people that you learned from? Like, where did you get those nuggets that helped you through the middle of that journey?
So 2 great questions. Let me take the first part. So to position yourself to be in a fertile state for awareness, you have to be in a state of presence. And so many people in pop culture and spirituality talk about being in the now, but they don't really explain how you position yourself to be in the now. And the way that you do that is that you have to make peace with your past and any regret, guilt, or shame from the past. If any of that is hanging on, your mind is constantly going to go back and keep you stuck in time. And that takes away from your presence in this moment, because you're pulling energy into a place that doesn't exist anymore, the past. Mm-hmm. Or if you're projecting fear over a future, you're out of the moment. So to position yourself best, it takes a certain amount of presence. The presence comes from an internal state of peace. The peace comes from an acceptance, a forgiveness, a compassion, and a love with who you are and your journey to this point. And that was one of the catalysts. Was I realized that my whole life was an unfolding of the best I had at each moment. Because the truth is, if I could have done better at any moment, I would have. And my ego struggled a long time with that one before it gave up the ghost on that. There only is what you did. I don't care what you knew, what you should have done, what you think you were capable of doing. What you did was the best your total consciousness had at the time. Mm-hmm. The quicker you accept that, the more you'll be free from holding yourself back due to that limiting idea or that less than idea or not good enough idea. So when that freed me up, I was in a state of joy and elation, which put me into more presence. So my awareness expanded because I was now more fully in the moment, because I wasn't thinking and so consumed with myself anymore. And what I could do, should do, I wasn't worried anymore. All I knew was I was in the moment, enjoying it and happy. And that opened up my awareness. Once that happened, then I started to see more of the connections and synchronicities that were always there, but I needed to be in that state to experience them. So the second part of your question was, the nuggets, like what were the nuggets? So the nuggets really, can be a hard one to wrap your mind around, but it wasn't necessarily coming from anything outside. It was a realization of what was already here and putting the dots together. So first of all, the trust in life, that life is always here supporting us. And the right information will get to you at the right moment when you're ready to receive it. For some people, it could be this message in this podcast right now at this instant. For others, it'll be a song they hear that they've heard a million times that they finally hear the lyrics to. And they're like, wow, now I hear exactly what the songwriter or what he was channeling at the time to put those lyrics down. But I've listened to that song forever and never heard that. Mm-hmm. So that's happened to me. Or a movie subtext, right? You watch a movie and all of a sudden you see new layers in the movie and you're like, oh, wow, that relates so to my life. It's talking to me. Mm-hmm. So that's what was happening. Life started talking to me based on my questions and inquiry about the deep nature of existence. And all the dots started to be put together. And the last note I'll say on this, it's like I was in such a state of presence that like a metaphysical hand grabbed me by the shirt collar, picked me up over the puzzle of life and allowed me to look at what the puzzle was and how it all worked, and then dropped me back in the middle of it. I'm like, okay. So, and then I decided to put those pieces together. So that's how presence works. And that's where insight comes from.
Your answer to the first part of that on awareness is so well articulated. I really love the way you explained that. And I can't help but think as you were talking through that about, I know you work with a lot of golfers and, I work with some golfers as well. And I think, I'm not sure what it is about the sport of golf, but I think it's probably the most challenging mental game. Maybe it's because of the amount of time between repetitions. Maybe it's because it's a solo sport and there's so much time that you have in your head. I haven't quite pinned that down, but I think when I approach my work and like the type of work we're talking about, I've always felt like golf has been such a great, laboratory to work on these types of things. And so as you're talking through that, I can't help but think about, the acceptance and within acceptance, there's an element of letting go, right? Letting go of the past and things that you can't control, focusing on the things that you can control, how that's a requirement for the execution that you want in the next, whether it's a swing in golf or a speech or a presentation to the board or, whatever your thing is, whatever your action is. And then you talk about how that, as you sort of let go and then your awareness expands, you're able to increase your ability to be present. When you work with athletes who are honing that skill, what are some of the strategies or tools that you give them to help them get better at that?
So anytime an athlete is struggling with getting the performance that they know, the talent that they know they have that comes out on the range or in a practice round, or maybe on a Thursday, or even to a certain degree on a Friday, but they need it to come out on the weekend, it's because something is changing in their perception about the impact of what it means. Mm-hmm. Like you can't hide the truth from your soul. Your soul knows where you're taking it. And if your soul isn't ready to experience that next level of success, which there's a lot of dominoes that fall from that one. Mm-hmm. There's responsibility. There's eyeballs on you. There's increased competition and vulnerability. There's exposure. I teach my athletes that you have to be ready to be that version of yourself. You have to want to be in a place where the pressure is on you, or it seems like the pressure is on you to test your skills. You have to be okay with vulnerability, knowing that it's what you've worked for to be in that state, to test yourself on Saturday or on Sunday, to position yourself with a chance to win. That's what you're working for. So if you're feeling any trepidation or any fear, or there's a lot of thoughts going in your head, you have to be honest with yourself in saying, I haven't been ready to be that version of myself yet. And the question is, who do you want to be now? So I ask them that. Once they tell me, oh, I want to be a champion, Now we've got to focus on getting you ready to be that version of yourself when you're out there. And that means we have to get all the beliefs that tell you why you don't deserve to be there, why you can't be there, why you shouldn't be there. We have to destroy those lies. So that's the process that I work on constantly with them, to continually recontextualize the foundation of their identity. And that's the core of the work in all three of my books, is reconstituting that identity and getting comfortable with it, so that when you're in that position, it feels comfortable to hit a great shot in there tight and have a good look for birdie, rather than short side yourself or miss a green and then have to struggle and then somehow make a bogey and fade. But that's the separating factor.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And I can see how, I think whether it's self-sabotage, whether it's somebody, an athlete choking in a big moment, you bring up a really good point that an individual may not, they may not even be consciously aware that they're not ready for that. If somebody's listening and that's resonating and they're like, oh, I've been doing that, like that's me. What are maybe some questions that you could give them to help them dig into, why am I not ready? What is the thing that's holding me back? And how do we start to peel those layers?
Sure. So if someone says, why am I not ready? I would have them rephrase that and say, why have I not been ready? And I would take the present tense out of it. You got to watch your words, because the ego loves to live in a space that's comfortable, and it likes to redefine and kind of stamp its foot on what it's been and hold on to that narrative. So my ear is really tuned to listening to make sure that somebody isn't saying am in this moment for something they don't want. So I'd have them say, why have I been doing that? And the answer to that is they have been doing it because it's matched what they have believed to be true about themselves. Not what they think is true, but what the core is true in the subconscious. So it's a clue that's showing them, hey, you think you're one version, but the reality always shows you the truth. You cannot argue with reality, but you can learn from it. You can learn from that contrast, and you can find out how to narrow that gap. And so the gap is coming from a belief that in that situation, there seemed to be more pressure over this shot. Why? Because it's going to mean something. I'm going to move up on the board. I'm going to contend. I'm going to have to prove myself out. Are you ready to do that yet? And when you are, you will be comfortable, or more comfortable with the shot. I'm not going to say you're going to be 100% comfortable, because an athlete always has some nerves and some adrenaline flowing. That's part of being an athlete. It's just part of what you do, especially when you're living in that space of the unknown and growing and expanding. But are you willing to hit the shot you need to hit? Are you willing to be calm and trust the swing and not feel like you have to force the swing because you're fearful and you just want to get the swing over with because you're uncomfortable with the moment? And that causes a lot of quick speed from the top of the swing. When people at the top of the swing go, I just want this over with. And this happens in milliseconds, but I just want this over with. No, I want to hit a pure, great 7-iron inside a 15-foot circle. That's what I'm executing. And it's as comfortable as if I'm on the range, just pure in one after the other. This is who I am. This is what I do. I don't care where this takes me. This is what I do. That gets them comfortable. Then they can keep practicing that and keep closing that gap. And then eventually they're going to break through and they're going to absorb that experience. And then it's going to be even harder for them to lie to themselves about who they can be, because it's going to be done. Right?
Right.
So, but when it hasn't been done yet is when it can be the most challenging, because there isn't a history in their experience. Now, most players that are on the PGA Tour have had a lot of success in college or in high school, different levels, AJGA or JJGAs across the nation. So they've had experience competing, but every level is going to squeeze out the weak of mind. So you have to be exponentially stronger of belief of mind in who you are at each level. And that's what we work on building through a process of completely reshaping the identity. But I want to add one last thing here. It's got to be done authentically. You can't fool yourself and you cannot fool the universe.
Right.
So it really has to be done because you really challenged these things and said, I'm never going to be that again. This is my new mantra. This is what I'm following. And this is who I'm going to be. And then you're going to deal with success and failures in that process without any lack of faith.
I was going to ask you a few minutes ago about maybe some NLP stuff or language, and then you rephrased my question. So is this something that you figured out on your own? Have you studied NLP? I mean, the importance of language and the words that we use in how we ask questions or speak to ourselves?
Yeah, I've never done any study on NLP. This came through the realization of how the ego is serving us as a bridge, and mindfulness and being aware of how my ego talks to me in my head and what comes out of my mouth, and being a really true witness to hearing myself and others as they reveal stories about themselves.
Nice.
So once you get mindful, you start to, you can't hide from yourself. It's kind of, it's interesting how it works. But yeah, so it's come from just how the whole puzzle fits together.
Yeah.
If the words kind of reveal what your ego is trying to confirm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the invincible mindset. I mean, I guess, the elevator pitch of, what does it mean to have an invincible mindset? Maybe walk us through, some of the strategies to start mastering, let's go with perception. I know that's a big part of it.
Yeah. So an invincible mindset is someone who has mastered the understanding of how their perception, thoughts, and feelings about who they are affects every thought they have, every decision that they have, every interpretation they have of the world. And most mystically, how life is going to connect back to you. And the reason is because, as I explained in the beginning of the book, it's 8 steps to an invincible mind. And step 1 is realizing your infinite potential. And in that step, I explain how we live in an infinitely creative universe. I think I explained that the Hubble and the new James T. Webb have taken photos, some crazy deep photos. And all we keep seeing, Ryan, is more and more and more. It's just like a hall of mirrors where it just, this beautiful expression of all these galaxies, trillions of them that are just unfolding, it's endless, it's infinite. And so we live in this creative universe. We're a part of this universe. That means we're endowed with that same infinite creative ability within us. So the question becomes, how much of that can you tap into? What's been the governor on you releasing more of that creativity and expanding the nature of who you are and what you experience? And so the whole rest of the book then, steps 2 through 8, are about the process of getting control of that governor and opening it up. So more of that Zen mind, that clear mind, that ability to go out and create and know how to navigate life is available to you. I want to just make a statement that, a lot of people, I've found in my work that infinity can be a scary thing for people. That's why we have an ego. It protects us with boundary from the responsibility or the non-boundary of being anything. You're in control of how fast or slow you go with it. You're in control of time. But I wanted to give people a handbook and a manual where they knew how it all came together. So there's no more questions in terms of, why suffering occurs or why this has been created in my life. And I say this with all respect for anybody who's gone through, some horrible things, and certainly my family's not discluded from that. But I've learned that everything does have a meaning to it as it relates to our journey and our experience here. Something it's offering us about the nature of who we are, what we can overcome, what we need to learn for our, for what we leave to other people in the world, our kids, whatever it is we're expressing in the world. So anyways, the invincible mind is about really understanding more about how to take control of this, because I don't think anybody would disagree that the world, and especially with all the data that's coming to us so fast now, has really swung the pendulum where it's trying to take control of all the minds and drag it into places that it wants it to go for views or likes or whatever it is that's going on, advertising dollars, whatever it is. And it's got more manipulatory and more nefarious in order to accomplish that. So it's even a more important time to gain control of your own mind and remember that you're the director and the writer of your own experience. Yeah.
So I kind of want to circle back. You were talking a minute ago about the golfer and if that thought process is, I just want to get this act or action over with. I want to be through this. And translating that to things outside of golf, if it's somebody that has to make a presentation, to the higher ups at work and they want to get past it. They want to get through it or, whatever those things are. How do you let's call that adversity or something, what's the process for tapping into, we'll say, invincible mental strength, in moments of adversity?
So everything goes back to intent. What's the intent? The athlete or the individual needs to be aware of what their intent is. Because if they don't know what their intent is, the subconscious programming is going to take over and cause them to experience an intent they may not want. Mm-hmm. That's been the previous programming. Mm-hmm. They'll default to the previous dominant programming. Mm-hmm. Or genetic programming or whatever it is. So they have to know what their intent is because that's the navigator. Yeah. So I'm sorry, you gave me an athlete example.
Earlier you used the example of a golfer, in maybe a high pressure scenario, and they get quick from the top or something because they're just trying to they want to get off the tee box, right?
So prior to that, the question is, what's your intent on the tee box? What do you want to do? Well, everybody wants to strike a drive right down the center of the fairway and have a cush lie and be, set up to be excited about hitting, something in there tight, right? For birdie. So that's what everybody wants to. So your intent is to hit a good, solid drive down the middle of the fairway. Yep. If you have rushed the shot previously, the simple, logical question is, does getting fearful at the top of the swing or worried or anxious help you in accomplishing that intent? No. On the range, what has helped you to pure the ball every time? When you're most relaxed, when you're actually trying to go slower, you're probably still going fast, but you're going a lot slower than you probably normally would be taking the club back. Mm-hmm. So you focus on some triggers or some keys in the swing that will get you into the most relaxed mode that is the most effective mode. Mm-hmm. Once you start doing that, once you hit the first one down the middle, then you can start getting a little more confident with going after it once you feel you have control. But if you start from a place of rushed, anxious quickness and you hit one left or right, it's only going to make you more anxious, and it starts this swirl that happens. And before you know it, especially with younger players, they're off the rails. Mm-hmm. They've made a double or worse. Mm-hmm. And then finally they get to the effort stage, after like the fourth hole, and then they finally, make a couple birdies. But now they're behind the eight ball on it. Mm-hmm. So I ask, what's the intent, and what can you work on consistently that will help you achieve that intent? Yeah. And can you remember that before you step on the first tee? Mm-hmm. Now, Ryan, once that happens, something else is going to pop up because we're going to get the onion peeled back to success eventually. Mm-hmm. Oh, now you've hit a good drive. Now what are you going to do? You're not used to that. You're used to struggling. Can you handle not struggling? Well, now I just, bladed an iron, or now, I hit a bad putt or something, so It's like a game of whack-a-mole.
Yeah. And this is why I said earlier, I feel like golf is such a great laboratory for this type of work, because let's say that's whether it's Thursday, you're like when we're talking about the tee box, I'm envisioning the 18th tee at Augusta. I think that's, to me, visually, that's like the hardest tee shot that I can think of. Whether that's on a Thursday afternoon or on a Sunday afternoon. Even if you hit it perfectly, the amount of time where you exit the tee box and then you walk out to the fairway and you have that approach shot. I mean, it could be 5 minutes. It could be 20 minutes, depending on, the group in front of you and what's happening and, your playing partners. And there's so much time to have all of those thoughts and to have to control your mind for 4 to 5 hours and then 60 to 80 strokes throughout that.
You mean the thought that you're going to win, that you're going to hit a pure shot, that you're excited to be there, that you're relaxed, that you're enjoying this, that this is the best place you've ever been, that you can't wait to do this?
You're being sarcastic, but you know as well as I do that there's only about 3 guys in the history of golf who thought like that the entire time. And I doubt even
those are the guys. Well, I want to work with the guys that want to be the 4th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah. Yeah. So have you ever heard of or come across the work of a guy named Joel Turner?
I have not.
Okay. So he has this thing called Shot IQ, and he either is or was a police sniper, and he's a hunter, specifically bow hunting, and he teaches the shot process. And I'm a hunter as well. I love archery, and everything I've said about golf, I think is equally true for archery, and whether that's target archery or hunting, bow hunting. Everything you described in your previous answer about the intent and then the process and the subconscious taking over. So, that if we're not consciously choosing to execute our shot, whether it's archery or golf or whatever, kicking a field goal, the way that we want to, if we're not conscious about that decision, then the subconscious takes over. And especially in archery, you've got this, bow in your hands. There's an explosion that's about to happen, millimeters from your face. And there's a lot of elements that go into this. There's target panic. People execute the actual shot incorrectly. So some people will punch the trigger instead of pulling through. There's a lot of different mechanical things, but it's all like, it requires the same mental process where you have to say, the way Joel coaches this is you have to be the loudest voice in your head, and you have to say consciously, I'm going to execute a controlled shot. I'm going to do this the way that I would do it on the range, archery range, golf range, kicking at the practice facility, whatever. And so I think these, and again, this is why I think you and we talked about this before we hit record. We love sports because they give you these crystal clear example moments that you can investigate and talk about. And it's a lot harder to do that in the corporate world or sometimes in everyday life. But, back to the shot, he's like, his coaching has evolved into saying, instead of saying, I'm going to execute a controlled shot, it's now become that statement, the intent walking up or when you get ready to do it is no matter what. Right. And so that means like if I come to full draw and I can't get to the point where I'm going to execute this perfectly, I'm going to let down. I'm not taking that shot. I'm not going to wound an animal or miss high or low or whatever. And so I don't know this for a fact, but if you think about like maybe there have been times in the past where Tiger would stop his downswing in the middle or in the backswing. I think that's what he's doing. It's phenomenal that he had the physical ability to stop that. But anyway, that's what I think you're coaching a very similar thing to what he does. And I love the parallels in these different pursuits.
Yeah. And I was being sarcastic because look, you're talking about the Masters, you're talking about winning a major, right? The amount of mental strength that you have to have just to put yourself in that position is incredible. You're up against the world's best on the globe, like the entire planet. Like these are the best players in the world. There can be no room for insecurity at that moment. There just isn't. Right. Now, as you get into college and you get down to the high school level, there's a little more room, but still, if you want to be the best, you have to train your mind to think and feel that way. And you have to do it without any shame, without any holdback whatsoever. You have to be relentless in your optimism and in your belief to be a great athlete. And so you have to continually train your mind and weed out the weeds, the things that pull you back, that muddy the water, that constrict that beautiful ability that you've been working so hard on the range, beating thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of balls and going to lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson. You have to really release that governor on your mind so that you can believe you are worthy of experiencing the success and being able to hold that space, whatever it means to you, whatever vulnerability, whatever responsibility it means. You have to be ready. And very few in the world are. And in working with a lot of top players on the LPGA and the PGA Tour and Korn Ferry, there's some that are ready for it and there's some that aren't. They're very happy with where they're at and what they're doing in their bubble, in their space, making a cut here or there, making a little money here or there. So you have to be rarefied air, like Jordan was rarefied air. He was relentless. Whatever he showed on the outside, it was like a million times that on the inside. Mm-hmm. We got glimpses of it during The Last Dance, glimpses. But anyways, so it depends on where you're at and what you're trying to do. And it's not just making that decision. You have to understand how to reconstruct the way you're thinking and feeling about who you are. And that's where the deep self-awareness work goes. That's where the real trench work is.
Yeah. So let's run with that. And, if the true test of mindset is in your daily actions, moving away from athletes and to just, I don't want to say regular people, but for the average listener who, is not trying to be one of the 4 or 5, on the Mount Rushmore in the PGA, what are some thoughts or, some things that they can focus on in their daily actions to, I guess practice having an invincible mindset and sort of catching themselves.
Great. Yeah. Because once you go down this path, you're going to be challenged and you're going to be tested. So it's really for the ready and the willing. And again, we're talking this invincible mind. We're talking about a very small percentage of people in the world that really want this information. Some people say, oh yeah, I'd love to know. They're not ready for this. There's very few people that are ready for this work. But if you are ready for it and you do want to know what to do in your daily life, if you're looking, let's say you're looking for love and you imagine that kind of connection, that security, that kind of intimacy, the conversations, the laughter, the, going traveling, going to movies, having dinners, the things that really enrich life through a relationship of two connected people, mentally, physically, then you have to see yourself as worthy of that. And you have to have enough faith and belief in who you are as a giver of that kind of presence and mindfulness and care and nurturing, as well as a receiver of it. So to work on an invincible mindset, and we're just taking the relationship example here, the thoughts you have about who you are, how vividly you imagine the scenario, when you go out, the trust that that the right person will show up or be introduced to you or somehow find their way to you from a million synchronicities, whether it's, off the grid or even on the grid with apps. There's been many, many, many people that have had really successful relationships and are married and are in love and are happy that have been on apps. I know there's horror stories in today's world, believe me. But again, you're going to resonate your consciousness and who you are and how you look at yourself and the class that you hold yourself in. And the person you are is going to resonate with someone of like mind. You're going to pull in the right person. So if you have been pulling in people that have not treated you well, it's just something to look at in terms of what in you has said that in the past that you'll put up with that, or you'll deal with that, or you don't have enough faith in yourself. So you're going to accept that as okay in the way you were treated. There's always something better, but you have to see and believe you are worthy of it and capable of it in yourself first. Then I'm going to use words like frequency, but the vibration, the consciousness, it is frequency and vibration. There's no other really word for it, but it comes from your consciousness, your level of awareness is going to attract in what matches that creative intent. That's how life works. It wants to create with you. The question is, what have you been creating? Can you be brave enough to look at it, own it, say it's not who I am anymore, declare who you want to be? And there's a whole process in Invincible to rewrite your narrative. There's a whole exercise in there that shows you how to rewrite the whole thing. And then read that every day before you get up and go into the world and put that energy out. And then, of course, Ryan, I'm trying to compact 300 pages into 5 minutes here, but then you have to have faith. There's a trust element that nobody gets away with in life. Everybody has to demonstrate faith. And, and by the way, we could have a whole nother conversation. This is what gets me crazy about analytics in sports, because it's regret avoidance. They think that just by numbers, they can avoid regret of making a bad decision. Well, the numbers said, when the whole point of being a good coach is to be intuitive with your team and to know when to pull out certain things. The past has nothing to do with the future unless you think it does. And we're constantly seeing with analytics how it's getting, they're getting egg on their face with it because it's not working. Because there are no guarantees. You have to have certain faith in something to be great at something, whether you're a coach or whether you're going after a relationship. You have to be vulnerable. You have to trust. And just one thing on the closing of the relationship example, you have to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm giving freely, openly, and lovingly, knowing that I could be really hurt. But I know that either it's going to work and I'm going to get closer to this person, or I'm going to get hurt, but I'm going to learn something really valuable. I'm going to get some reflection, and I'm going to get this person out quicker from my existence so I can find the one who's finally going to match and trust me and love me and care about me the way that, I'm being vulnerable to them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I love the comment on the analytics in sports and how that's kind of being used as a way to shirk accountability maybe for the decision.
100%.
It's so anyway, we could go down a rabbit hole on that, but I want to ask you specifically. You're talking there about reminding yourself daily, that you're worthy, that self or that infinite expansion exists, and that's what we want to pursue. What are some of the things that you personally do on a daily basis to remind yourself of that?
Well, I look at just my life, the fact that I'm here through everything I thought I would never get through my entire life. And yet here I am. And that I had a dream to one day know some of the insight on existence. And somehow through the grace of God, existence, life, the universe, I was graced that, I'm able to share this work with people, that I've been able to work with some of the top athletes in the world. My relationship, my marriage, my kids, I look at things that whatever demonstrates something that I wanted that I didn't know how I was going to get. Like when I came out of college in debt, not knowing how I was ever going to get out of an apartment and, create a life. Like it was a massive mountain that it looked like to me, I saw other people have it a lot easier and get head starts and be well-funded. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be interesting. And sure enough, with keeping your head down and doing what you do, you just get there. So what keeps me going is that beautiful elegance that I've learned that the universe is infinitely creative. And when we learn to trust and have faith in it, that's when miracles happen. And not that you don't have to go through some fires and really learn and have some pain in your life to learn and to understand. That is part of life. And there are some unavoidables. Grief is an unavoidable in life. Nobody escapes that one. That's part of the up and down of existence. But when you see that life is truly unconditionally loving you in terms of creating with you, man, it gives you excitement to get out of bed in the morning and you're like, okay, yesterday wasn't the greatest day, but today is an unwritten canvas. What are we going to create today? And I'm going to start from the most optimistic mindset. It may or may not go my way, but I'm getting up the next day and I'm doing it. And I think the person that can do that every day is the one that really truly experiences what life is all about, because eventually when they least expect it, things happen, right?
Yeah.
When you don't need it as much, but you just in trust with it. And it can be hard because you get comparables in the world. Social show those comparables, of the curated versions of people's best lives all over the world. And it's really some crazy. We're seeing some of the worst of the world and we're seeing some of the best of the world. So managing your inputs and really having a good grounded sense in who you are, a good gratefulness towards life. These are all the things that I think answer your question of what fires you up and gets you going. And I want to say this, it doesn't mean that, I'm not susceptible to having an off day. We all are, but that's what gets me back on track, is that humility in life's divine creative power with each one of us. We're all a part of this divine creative journey. And the more you realize it, the more you can tap into it.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit from individual sports to, let's say, like leadership and teams. I'll make a statement and then you can take it from there. But how much do you believe that let's say leaders who have self-understanding and are empowered individuals create empowered teams and communities?
Well, I think the most self-aware leaders are the most open to possibility, and are a great leader is someone who can inspire someone to be even greater than what they've accomplished, right? You want people to do more than even you've done, and you want to reveal to them what they can't see in themselves and lift them up and show them what they're capable of. So that's what a really good leader does. Focuses on positivity, optimism, gives people strength when they feel weak or they feel incapable. They help lift them up and give them an opportunity to find their greatness. Those are conditions of a great leader versus, somebody that's egotistic, narcissistic, cuts them down, self-consumed, lacks humility. That's not a leader. Those aren't leaders in the world. So, but yeah, those are some of the best concepts or ideas of what I've seen and read about in great leaders in the world that have left a legacy and helped. The whole idea is to lift humanity up, right? To help. We're all so vastly different, so many different cultures, ethnicities, styles, art, music. The diversity is unbelievably beautiful in this world, but yet there's a unity about us as human beings. And I think the real thing about moving humanity forward is to both celebrate those differences and yet truly understand our unity as a human species, looking to, hopefully all find, well, it's been rough, man, but a lot of rabbit holes here. I'm going to stay away from them, but it's, humanity has a dark side too. And, that doesn't lead to survival. That leads to destruction. And so for survival, we want to find what makes us better together as humanity. I know that sounds kumbaya-ish, but it's really what keeps the world going. We celebrate our differences, we understand them, but yet we also understand our similarities. That's a good leader.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit here. We're going to go rapid fire. I got a couple of these for you. One mental principle that never fails in adversity.
Humility, the ability to see what you need to learn in that adversity, and the belief that you can survive anything.
Dig that.
So both the humility for the awareness and the belief that, hey, you'll get through this no matter what.
Yeah. Dust
yourself off and keep going.
Love it. One practice for instant clarity or focus.
Remembering that you're an infinitely creative and you live in an infinitely creative universe that has served you your entire life. Why would you not trust it to serve you now? So if you can meditate on that idea, sort of close your eyes and remember everything you've gotten through, it'll help give you strength for whatever you're facing now, that you will get through this.
How about one book besides Invincible or I Am that every peak performer should read?
So I'm going to go really deep on, my go-to work in the world is the Tao Te Ching. It's the 60 some verses of the Tao. to me, it's the most elegant, simple, and profound piece of writing that's ever been done. So that always immediately centers me.
I got goosebumps because it's my favorite too, but it has for me.
Wow. Now I got goosebumps.
Dude, it has to be the Stephen Mitchell translation for me. I think
I got to write that down. Hang on. Because I love to check out different interpretations.
Okay. You know? So Stephen Mitchell has translated a lot of books in that like genre, whatever you want to call that. His translation of Bhagavad Gita is another one that I absolutely love.
Another great piece of work.
Yeah. And interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, his wife is Byron. I want to say Byron. I was going to say Byron Nelson, but it's not Byron Nelson. It's
Byron Katie.
Yeah. The writer.
Is it?
Yeah.
The writer that with the work where she asked the questions.
Yeah.
Is it real? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh. That's his wife.
That's an interesting connect. I never knew that. Okay.
So, okay. One more of these rapid fires.
Sure.
These are good. One belief that people must let go in order to unlock their next level or their expansion.
That they're imperfect in any way, shape, or form.
So a lot of what you've said today reminds me of a mentor and friend of mine, one of my first business coaches. His name is Paul Reddick. And we were actually working on a book together right at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. And we were talking to a publisher when COVID hit and everything shut down. And then everybody kind of went their separate ways and that project never happened. But kind of the core of that message and what he was really working on at that time was like, you are enough. Like there's nothing wrong with you, and stop with all the, I'm not big enough. I'm not fast enough. I'm not, whatever. So I've always loved that type of thing, that thought process when he taught it and hearing you say it. So, let me get you to expand on that a little bit. Like, why would that be the thing that you suggest folks to let go of?
Okay. So that is an incredible question and a really important one. And the transitional moment in the book is really in step 4, when people really understand how to remove the limiting beliefs that reveal that perfection. We're taught for generations about imperfection. You got to be better and better and better and better. Now, there's nothing wrong with growth. And tomorrow you're going to be a different version of yourself, a more expanded version, a more knowledgeable version, a more aware version than you are today. But the idea is to be able to look at the perfection of the unfolding to this point in every choice and action, whether it helped you or didn't help you. It got you to this point right here. And by seeing that perfection, you're able to release so much negative energy of contempt, of shame, of guilt, and of regret. And those form the boundary of limitation around you that does not allow you to think and act to get outside of it, and does not allow life to get inside of it. How can life give you something that you don't believe you're worthy of? So seeing your perfection blows out the limitation and allows you to have access to more of the infinite possibilities that exist for you in every moment.
And that's some great stuff, Howard. Where can folks get more of you? Book, your website, any of the work that you would want people to find?
Yeah. So first of all, on Instagram, I post some positive stuff every day, or every other day. I try and post some good stuff, and my connection to me is in my bio. My books are available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and any independent bookstore for I Am, Invincible, and Time in a Bottle. And then my website for my private coaching work, either in sports or outside of sports, with any area of life, spiritual path, relationships, whatever it is howardfalco.com. And then one last thing, for the legacy of the work, I have a foundation called the 8 Wisdom Foundation. It's 8wisdom.org. And it's what I've set up. I'm working on it now to sort of leave a manual for young people to really understand themselves, sort of a manual of self-discovery that I'd love to see young people somehow have a class on before they graduate high school, whether they go to college or they don't. So they have a greater understanding of how impactful their mind is on their experience of life. And that's something that isn't currently being taught.
That's really cool. So I guess, first of all, we'll have a link to all of this in the description and in the show notes. So if you're listening, just go down to the description and we'll have links to all of the Instagram website, books, and 8wisdom.org. So how does 8wisdom.org work, Howard? Are people, you mentioned that that's for the legacy of the work. I mean, what?
So the next stage is the funding stage to fund the expansion of the platform for the work and a curriculum to be presented to schools across the nation to help with the mental health crisis, to help young people understand how they have control over their thoughts don't have control over them, and how to put more of the pieces of the puzzle together of who they are, what they're worth, and what they're capable of in the world, through example after example after example, and through an understanding in a cohesive way of how to learn that, so that when they leave, whatever decisions they make in life, that they understand the profound nature of the way they're interpreting the world and responding to it based on how they see themselves has a huge impact on how the direction of their life goes. Yeah. I certainly would have gotten this information younger. Great.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. It's awesome that you're focused on that. You want to do that and that you're actually doing the work to set that up. I'm sure that's a big undertaking.
It's not a small undertaking. I'm trying to take it one step at a time. So it's been set up. The idea is in place. There's a lot of people that want to help with it, that love the work. So just want people to be aware of that's the ultimate mission with it, to help young people with their minds, which is not the best place these days.
Yeah. All right. Final question for you, Howard. Your number one tip to help our listeners develop more consistency.
So one of the things I want people to know who are hearing this right now is you're already doing, an incredible job just by tuning into this. There's something in you that said, I want to listen to this. So life's already connecting with what your intention is. And so to develop the consistency, you really, what would best serve you is to write down who you want to be and how you want to define who you are. And there's a whole exercise in Invincible that shows you how to write down a new creed for yourself and to follow that, at least read it every day to grease the wheel for you, to get that consistency in motion. Because when you don't read it, you get up, you get distracted, and before you know it, a day's gone by and you've done things or made choices or acted in a way that wasn't consistent with moving the needle in the direction you want to go. So by reading something every day that gives you sort of a manifesto on where you want to head in life and who you are, really can be a great wheel greaser and add consistency. And then it becomes its own whirling dervish. It sort of picks up momentum and speed and inertia after a while. And a few months from now, your whole life, you're like, wow, everything's changed. That's the miracle of how powerful the creative mind is when focused. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Howard, thank you so much for being here. That's our show for today. As always, my dear listener,
my pleasure.
I appreciate you spending some time with us today. Look, if you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you know who will enjoy it as well or benefit from what we're discussing here with Howard. Also, consider leaving us a review. And if you haven't done so yet, definitely subscribe to the Move the Chains podcast so you get notified of every new episode. We'll catch you on the next one. Keep moving the chains.